All right, computer students, here we go. We are going to go ahead and create the razor special text, which is part of the first few assignments in GIMP. I'm going to start by opening up a new file. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And in the assignment, it says to make the canvas 420 by 300. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Try to stay with the assignment as much as possible. Okay, and it also says that you should rename the text layer to main text. Okay, so what we're going to go ahead and do is this. I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK. I'm going to create my canvas. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and select the text tool. Okay, it's right here. And it says in your instructions that when you'll put your text in, you could really make it whatever you want. I'm going to go ahead and use my name. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and now I'm not going to close this right away. Okay, but I am going to go over here and I'm going to rename this layer. Okay, so I want to go ahead and rename this layer main text as such. Okay, I am somewhat okay with my lettering the way it is. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to leave it for now. I'm going to close this. You can move your text around. All right, every time you go to move that particular text around, okay, it opens up the text editor. All right, so for right now, I'm just going to put it in the center. I'm going to close this out. Now, that one of the next things you need to do is you need to alpha lock, which means that what that does is it allows you to edit just the text. Okay, so that's one of the things that's in step 2. It says in the layer dialog, it should say click the lock alpha channel box. Okay, and it would be right here in our video. All right, now in step 3, this is kind of a tricky one. Some people were kind of getting messed up with this. It says now use the Web 2.0 gray-blue 3D gradient from the pre-made Web 2.0 gradient pack. Well, we don't have that web pack downloaded on the computers, but you can make it, and it actually walks you through how to make that particular gradient here in the next couple of steps. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. First things first, okay, in order to make that gradient, I'm going to go ahead and click on my foreground color. It's over here, it's in the black box. And in my instructions, it actually gives me an HTML code for that particular color. Every color that you can think of has a 6-digit HTML code. And you're actually going to be able to experiment with these codes when you go to build web pages. But this particular code is supposed to be 629 1C0. I'm going to hit OK, and you'll notice that it changes it to a blue color. Now I'm going to hit my background color, all right, and I'm going to change that to what it specifies in the instructions, which is CCE, all right, 6F9. And I'm going to change that, and now I have my 2 colors. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a gradient. Okay, I'm going to click on my gradient tool. And what I want to do is I want to go ahead and edit my gradient. Okay, so I'm going to click here. And one of the things that I can do, let's actually hang on one second. I just pull this up. I want to go ahead and I want to actually create a new gradient. Hang on one second. Okay, in order to create a new gradient, if you find the gradients dialog box, which is over here, it's going to pop up somewhere on your screen. Okay, and if it's not, you can always go to Windows or the dialog thing and look at the different boxes you can, or toolboxes you can use. In the bottom left-hand corner here, there's something that says Edit Gradient. Okay, or you have a button that says New Gradient. I want to create a new one. So now I have my gradient editor. And this is where we're going to create the gradient that they use in this particular assignment. you don't necessarily have to use this gradient, but you should actually learn how to make your own. Okay, so for the sake of this assignment, I want you to do this, but in the future, if they ask you to use a particular gradient, you could make your own. There's some really cool blending and kind of things you can do. So first things first, okay, I'm going to right click on this bar right here, and it allows me to change the left color type and the right color type. I'm going to change the left color type to the foreground color, and I'm going to change the right color type to the background color. And then I'm going to move this little triangle over slightly to the right as it indicates in the assignment. Okay? All right, I'm going to go ahead and save this gradient. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save it. And it's going to be saved as untitled. All right, if I wanted to do it, I could just label it as Web 2.0. That would be fine too. And then I could save it and it just changes the name. That's fine. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this now. And now I have my Web 2.0 gradient. All right, now that I have this really awesome bit going on here, I kind of want to change my text around a little bit. I'm not very happy with it, so I want to go ahead and I want to edit my text. Now, a couple problems with this, and this is kind of one of the reasons I did this. All right. Sometimes it's hard to edit text. If you ever want to edit text, you would right click on whatever text layer you have. The reason they call it a text layer is there's this big T on the image of what the layer should be. All right, you right click on that and you go to text tool. All right, and it allows you to bring up the text editor. Now, I don't really want this font. Okay, it's just too simple. It's not cool enough. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to choose a different font. I'm going to find something that looks interesting. Maybe, oh, this snap kind of looks sweet. Let's see here. Let's see. Something that looks interesting. Wide Latin Ultra Expanded looks kind of sweet. All right. All right, let's change the size of our font to be something like 30 pixels. Yeah, it's still not big enough, though. Let's go 48. Yeah, I like that better. But now, oh, man, I can't see where my text is. Okay? This is kind of a problem. All right, now I can move my text around, or I can try. Hang on one second. But I can't really, like, make the window much bigger. All right? And as much as I want to try different things and whatnot, it's really hard to do that. So actually, you know what? I'm going to delete that and start a different text. Okay, so this time I'm going to make it really big. All right, and I'm going to make it my name. Okay, and drag it over and move it center. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just change this real quick to being black so that I can start fresh. Okay, so there it is. I can change now my foreground back to being my blue color. All right, and hit close. And now I am ready to continue with step 5 in the assignment. I have my black text, which is kind of cool looking. I have my gradient ready to go. Okay, I'm going to turn alpha lock back on. All right, and now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and apply that gradient to this particular text. Now I can play around with it so that different levels of the text are shaded with the gradient. If I went at an angle, it'd be at an angle. If I went down, it would go down. Okay, essentially you want to do what it shows in the image. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that. It looks something like that. You can also play around with the length of drag on your gradient. The longer the drag, the more blended out it is. The shorter the drag, the less blended. For instance, if I were to just do a short drag, have a definitive line across my text. If I were to start just above the dotted line and go just below the dotted line, I have a little bit more blue. If I start near the dotted line and come down a little bit, okay, now it's a little bit more blended, and I can just play around with that. until I get something that looks remotely similar to what's going on in my image. And I had it once, now I want to play with it again here. It's a little too light on the bottom. All right, there we go. I'm actually happy with that right there. All right, the next thing we want to do, okay, is we want to go ahead and outline the text as a selection. Okay? Well, if you right-click on that text layer, there's an option that says Alpha to Selection. If I click it, it literally selects around the text. Now, because it's a text layer, it keeps data, bits of information about the shape of the text so that we can outline the text if we want to. And part of that reason is that we, in this particular section, in step 7, we want to grow the text. Okay? So in order to grow it, it says go up to Select, okay? And it says to grow, and it says to grow by a factor of 3. Okay, now what that does is it doesn't make it bigger so much as what it makes the text fatter, fills it out a little bit, okay, which is kind of what happens in the tutorial. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create a new layer. Okay, we're going to call this a border layer. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and place it. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bucket tool, and I want to go ahead and create a new color as defined in the instructions as 293A47. It's a darker blue. Okay, and when I hit that fill button, okay, it kind of fills it in like this. But if you go over here to your layers and you move it down in the order, it goes behind the lighter text to create almost like an outline of the text that you're working with. Okay? That's kind of the effect we're looking for. All right, so that's kind of what we're looking at doing right there. All right, the next step you want to do is you want to create a reflection, but in order to do that, you have to copy the two layers, the text layer and the border layer. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select my text layer and hit duplicate. I'm going to select my border layer and also hit duplicate. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and the two originals I'm going to hide so that I'm dealing with these two. I also want to move it so that my copy, which in this case Stephen number 1 and border copy, are right next to each other. So I'm going to take border copy and I'm going to move it up. Now, what I'm going to do is I am going to merge the Stephen layer down onto the border copy. And by doing that, I'm going to right-click on the text. I'm going to merge down. What that did is it creates one single copy, which I am then going to, I am personally going to rename it. Okay, so I'm going to rename this layer. I'm going to try to rename it. There it is. And I'm going to call it the reflection. Okay? Now, the reflection, okay, has to be flipped upside down. Okay, in order to flip that upside down, what I need to do is I need to transform it. But I'm not transforming the image, I'm just transforming the layer. So I go to my layers drop-down menu, and I go to transform. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it vertically so that it's literally upside down. And if I leave it just like that, it actually flips it so that it creates a very good reflection just where it is. All right. Now, if you're working in a different version of GIMP and it didn't work for you, exactly, maybe it didn't flip or it didn't flip enough or whatever, there's ways around that. At this point, once you flipped, you're going to want to make everything visible in your layers. Okay, let's say, though, that your reflection didn't do a very good job of flipping and you need to move it around a little bit. Or you don't like how close they're together, you want to make it look like a larger reflection. Okay, to do that, you would have to go ahead and select whatever layer it is you want to move. I'm going to select border copy. Okay, at this point, I'm going to select none. I don't want anything highlighted. Now, I can move each one of these individual things. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select border copy. I'm going to select the move tool, and it'll allow me to move my reflection around anywhere I want. Okay, now I'm going to position it so that these two are a little bit farther apart to create a little bit more of a reflection like such. Okay, and that's how you would do that. If, okay, you want to make, if for whatever reason you go to select something, you accidentally select the wrong layer and move it around, there's always the Control Z, which allows you to undo. If you wanted to move your original text, but you were afraid to move it, okay, so let's go ahead and say I wanted to move my original name, Stephen, and I move it. Oh, no, now it's off my background. What do I do? Oh, no, Mr. Bornheimer, what do I do? Well, this is what you do. You hit Control Z for one, boom, done, undone. But then if you still want to move it, there's little chains that you can click here, and it allows you to link layers so that they move simultaneously. So then what happens is if I go to move it, it moves together. So actually I'm moving two layers simultaneously. Okay? Then when I'm done, I can unlink them, and we're good to go. Next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to add a layer mask. So you select whatever it is that is your reflection. In this case, my border copy is my reflection. Okay, and I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to go down to Add Layer Mask. That brings up a dialog box. And in that dialog box, there is an option that says black, which means full transparency. What this does is it essentially creates a non-destructive mask. So it allows you to hide certain aspects of a layer or text or whatever so that you can manipulate it. Like in the case that we want to do here, we want to create a reflection. So I'm going to go ahead and add that, and it's going to make it look like my reflection disappeared, but it isn't gone. Okay? So now, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to apply a gradient to that reflection that I just placed a mask over. In order to do that, it asks you in the instructions to do a foreground to background gradient. Okay? And I'm going to go ahead and do that. And it's going to go ahead and it wants you to choose a blend tool, which is the gradient tool. I don't want my foreground to be this dark background color. I want it to be this lighter blue that we chose earlier. I'm going to go ahead and make sure I have that. And it shows you selecting the text right about here and pulling down to right about here. Okay. Now, it shows a little bit more than I would want to. So I'm going to go ahead and play around with this blend, or what we would call gradient tool. I'm going to undo a few of the things that I did. Okay, I'll be honest, I'm not very happy with this. Give me 1 second. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and leave it like this. Seems like the best I can do. And now I'm going to go ahead and add a Glassy Effect. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just go up to Filters. And there's different effects I can add. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just look at a couple of these. One of them should be Glassy. Okay, there's a glass tile one I just passed up. Some of these names of these particular filters have changed. So if you can't find one that actually says glassy, it might actually be referring to another one. All right, I hate to say it, but a student helped me out here. And what we have to do is we have to create an ellipse and fill it in to kind of create this effect. So we're going to go ahead and do that. In step 13, it talks about grabbing the ellipse tool. okay, and making sure it's on subtract mode. Okay, so the ellipse tool would be this tool up here, and one of the options here in the modes, it says subtract. I'm going to go ahead and select that. Okay, now I want to be on the main text, okay, layer, which is this layer right here. Okay, and I want to make sure that my alpha lock, or I want make sure that I select my text. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that alpha to selection. Okay, and I've done that. All right, and now I want to create that ellipse or that glassy effect. So I'm going to go ahead and put my ellipse across here. And I'm going to adjust that ellipse. Okay, by adding this ellipse, I have actually kind of subtracted a little bit of color, okay, which is kind of nice. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and select off there, and now it's kind of selected this upper portion of the text like it did in the instructions. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to create a new layer, and I want to label that Glassy Effect. Okay, I'm going to hit OK. That's here. And I'm going to go ahead and apply a white color to the highlighted selection, so using my bucket fill. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to select white. And I'm going to go ahead and apply color to the highlighted selection. Now, I go to this layer and I can change the opacity to 30.5. By doing so, I'm only allowing part of that white to actually blend with the original. I'll get close to 30.5, 30.8. I only allow part of that to actually blend. Okay? And now I have something that looks very similar to, I'll go to select none, this. Now, if you wanted to, okay, if you wanted to make it look more like the image, you wanted more of this bottom to go away, you could go ahead and subtract by kind of doing something similar with what you did with the ellipse, part of this bottom here. Okay, and actually I'm going to Control Z that. I'm going to select the text, or I'm going to select my reflection, and I'm going to now do that subtraction. Okay, and I'm going to fill it with, oh, hang on one second. I want it to be, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do something like this. Seems like some of the instructions are a little off. What you can do is you can go ahead and change the opacity of the reflection to make it less of an impact, and then I would call that good. Make sure that when you're done, you go ahead, File, Save As. Okay, and this would be like, we'll call it Glassy Text, and you want to save it as an XCF. And then you also definitely want to save it as a JPEG. All right, and that's it. And that's it for the Glassy Text. I hope this helps. Obviously, some things don't always turn out exactly like you would like them, possibly because of the way that some of the initial parameters of the program are set up. Versions also make a difference. But this is close. This one looks really good. And if you can get something similar or almost like this, that's great. All right, hope you have a good day. This was Mr. Bornheimer signing off.